Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the bi-weekly meeting with Project Koala, the Transparent Exchange API working group. We have an agenda for today's meeting. Does anyone have some extra issues we need to cover?
There was a comment from the CLE meeting, the Common Lifecycle Enumeration meeting, on how it would kind of integrate. And I think one of the outcomes of that was we really needed a sequence diagram for how the API is going to work. Because that might actually guide some of our architecture in CLE.
Yeah, and the CLE came up in the SCIT meeting as well. So I'm adding that to the agenda then.
Okay, yep.
So I don't see any newcomers at this meeting, just the same old guys. Who is V? Do we have any idea who V is? What's hiding behind that?
Hey guys, my name is Valerio Mulas, and I'm joining. It is the second meeting.
Great. Can you add your full name in the chat so I can add that to the meeting notes?
Sure.
Thanks. Welcome. So, do we have any news from TC54 and the Pearl group?
No news on 54. We do need to, although we do need to kick off the monthly or every 2 weeks, whatever we decide.
Yep.
The actual official call. There are things that we can actually start working on.
Yeah, I think Samina is still on vacation. She hasn't responded to email, and normally that takes 1 hour or less.
That's fine. She doesn't need to be there.
No, but we need to work with the invited experts, so you and I can take that.
Oh, right. You're right. Yeah, for that. I think the very first meeting, just to kick it off, we won't actually need them because it's going to be mostly administrative type stuff. It's not really going to be fun for most. But there's some things that we need
Let's do the boring stuff ourselves then. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But at least we can kick it off. That way, you know, we start establishing a history of the meetings in preparation for the December General Assembly.
Yep.
We're doing the same thing with TG2, which is the package URL group. So I'm going to be working with Philippe on that, getting that scheduled. I won't bore you with the details on everything that we need to do there, but yeah, there's a ton of administrative stuff that we need to do in TG2. So thankfully, TG1, which is our group, is going to be very, very light in comparison. So let's be thankful of that, I guess.
Yeah, they have a lot of previous work, so
yeah.
Okay. KoalaCon, I won't go through all the details. I've been in contact with what's his Niklas from Dependency Track, and he's on. So I added to the document I think you have access to some business bullshit text for the invitation, and we need to start working on the agenda. I'll try to start that next week. It's scheduled today for Thursday, September 5. And we need to get access to the OWASP Zoom and be able to write. Okay. So we need to write on the blog and other things to have an.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that's less than a month away? Do you think that's enough time?
Maybe we should postpone it and schedule it somewhere else. I'm taking a look at the my calendar. We had Thursday. Yes. We won't. That would be September 26th after my conference. That will work.
Let's see. Yeah, that's the week of OWASP Global AppSec in San Francisco.
That's no good. Okay. Yeah, that was why I couldn't bring it to Stockholm.
Right. Yeah, I would have loved to go.
Yeah, next year, October 3rd, coming week. There's an SPDX meeting at 5 o'clock my time. SPDX general meeting. So maybe we should either run it in evening Europe time or on the Wednesday instead. What about
Wednesday, October 2nd?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Does that
I mean, it
work
works
for
for me.
And then we'll have plenty to present as well.
Yeah, because I just, with the original September 5th or whatever it is, 6th timeline, I mean, we still have to do the blog post and social media. By the time people find out about it, it would have already happened. It's kind of my fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
How many people do you think, sorry, how many people do you think it's likely might attend this?
I'm hoping that we can get around 20, all the major vendors, but then there will be a long tail when we publish the recording. They will want to go in and watch what's going on and learn.
Yeah, the reason why I thought about that is because, you mentioned the date of October the 2nd and also possibility of having it in the evening European time. October 2nd is also scheduled to have a dependency track community meeting, but that of course, that can be rescheduled, and of course it might not clash depending on the time that is scheduled for KoalaCon. But one comment on that, pertinent to what you just said, the amount of people who actually attend the online calls is actually a fraction of the people who then actually catch up later by watching a video on YouTube.
Yeah.
So even if you think that attendance was a bit light, if the meeting was well structured with an agenda that can actually then have good timestamps in YouTube, where people can actually hop to the bit or bits that they're actually interested in, then you get a lot more views.
Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting. Between 3 and 4 is so between 3 and 4 UTC, there's a threat modeling bomb working group. Between 4 and 5, the OWASP dependency track community meeting, and between 5 and 6 is the CLE meeting. So
yeah, I have the CLE meeting here at 7 o'clock my time.
Yeah.
So should we move it to Monday, September 30th? Would that be less conflicts?
Yeah, I mean there's nothing. The only thing that's there is the SBOM community meeting from NTIA, which is 3 to 4 UTC.
Okay.
I can't do before that though. I do have between 2 and 3 UTC. I do have a meeting that I can't get out of.
So what?
Are we doing KoalaCon only online or in a hybrid way?
Only online.
If we wanted to do it hybrid,
Meet.
we could
Yeah.
theoretically,
Hello.
we might be able to do something for OWASP AppSec Global, but I need to know now if we do it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about OLS conference, so it's just 2 days, and I think most people stay longer. I will stay longer, so
Yeah.
Could be. Next year we'll have our own track at AppSec. Yay. No,
Yeah.
I think we have to start with online meeting. I think that's good
Okay.
enough for now. Next year we'll hopefully have a lot of implementation issues, and we need to meet in order to have interoperability tests and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I think it's more critical in a year time or half a year. So
Okay.
absolutely. Okay, are we settling with Monday? At least we don't have any conflicts in this group. Let's go for that.
Okay.
What was that 7 a.m. comment? It,
Yeah. some,
Yeah.
some are kinder than others. I'm usually springing out of bed to hear Steve talk, but today was a little
I'm
bit more
sorry.
difficult.
So would it help to like move it an hour later or something?
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just Australian sarcasm. I was so keen for this meeting, actually. I was bugging Steve because he wouldn't let me onto the link until I realized I was on a day early. So I think
Oh,
I've been here for 25 hours at least.
oh,
That's
cool. That's funny.
dedication.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So we look good then.
Absolutely. One of those kind of weeks, that's all.
Okay, CLE. I'm going to talk about Skit in a while, but you had feedback that they wanted a sequence diagram of the API.
Yeah, it would really, I think, help. And well, it would help us too. But when we are trying to define the spec, the life cycle events around product naming are kind of important that we obviously get that right. And CLE, while it will be an artifact type supported by Koala, it also needs to be usable as a standalone specification. And trying to do both is interesting, and having a sequence diagram would actually help us identify what things that we need to have consistent, like in the specification for CLE, around product identity, right? Because I mean, if we change the product identity of something, because that's one of the lifecycle events, how does that impact T? How does that impact, if it's a standalone specification? So just being able to know like what transpires over the API would be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, we had that discussion as well in the brainstorm meeting last week. I'm going to show some slides on that soon, but we need to keep track of that. So I'm making a note to open an issue in the tracker here so we don't lose it. But it kind of ties into Koala, to Skit, and many other things. Okay, moving on. Espomarama, I have been successful in reaching out to Alan Friedman. So he set up a meeting with me and Anthony later this week to discuss Koala participation in Espomarama in September. So hopefully we'll get a slot there as well, and that will be important for us in order to reach out to vendors, because they're trying to watch what he's up to. Dimitri is not here now. He had some ideas about the work group on CISA sharing. I guess that's Alan as well, so maybe we can cover that.
Yeah, you can always just reach out to Chris Blask as well. I think he's
Yeah.
one of the leaders of that group.
Cool. I'm gonna switch to sharing something else. Let's do it like that. And I'm in the cottage by the countryside, so I'm trying to organize my desk here by moving around, I guess.
Still on vacation?
No, no vacation. My wife has vacation. She has plenty of vacation, but I'm working from this place now. Okay, do you see?
Yep, I see Apple keynote.
Yeah. So Skit, it's a working group I followed for a long time, and discussions on the mailing list have been amusing and confusing, trying to figure out what they're doing. But I think they reached a point where it's much more clear. So I had to reconnect with the group. So Pavel and I had a meeting. They have both the IETF working group and they have something they call the Skit community. I think it's kind of what we're doing in CycloneDX versus the ECMA standardization. So Skit is trying to create a system, a ledger, where you can take statements like SBOM files, attestations, get them signed and logged in a log very much like certificate transparency for certificates and PKIs. So you get a non-repudiation situation. You can actually get proof that you logged this and you published this. They are looking into both the manufacturer being able to produce statements, but also third parties, which is kind of interesting. So they asked us quickly about third-party attestation. And here comes especially the CLE, right? If we think an open source project has died or a manufacturer has filed for bankruptcy and disappeared, obviously we have no one with authority as the owner of the product that can make an attestation. But they wanted security researchers or someone else to attest and say, hey, I believe this is dead and we should mark it as dead. They also were thinking about discovery and other things and have ended up where we are saying DNS is the only way. So we had a really good discussions. They are looking as well for naming identifiers like everyone else. So I think we have to work together. They were interested in our idea about using a URN, the Transparency Exchange Identifier. So we have to look and see if their subject, they're using COS data structure, not JSON. These are kind of binary JSON files developed by IETF. But the subject is a string. It could potentially be a TI. So we quickly ran out of time, went over time. So I'm going to try to join their meeting again and see if we can continue. But we had some issues. We found no collisions in our work. Actually, we think the projects are quite complementary, but we need a common need for terminology. we have a common need for that, and we need to look into digital signatures and trust anchors. They didn't have ideas. They liked the idea of having a pull request of transitioning from the web PKI to a private PKI, possibly anchored by DNSSEC. And I think if they succeed in the transparency log, it can be really beneficial for T, because then the T API can refer to the log saying, here's a track record, here are all our publications. You can see that I haven't deleted or manipulated what I'm publishing in T. So I think that could be really, really useful as an add-on. So basically, they produce attestation signed statements that we can include in the T collection. So that was a good meeting. We're also planning to have something similar with SPDX, a presentation and an open discussion. So as soon as I've been able to fit that into the calendar, I'll publish the dates and URLs on the Slack channel. Any questions about Skit?
So by log, do you mean a cryptographic ledger, like the blockchain?
It's a cryptographic Merkle tree ledger.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yep. That's kind of what I
Very-
thought. I always
Yeah.
thought these things would be complementary, right? Because I mean, we there was a couple posts up on LinkedIn, and people saying, "Why you redoing the work that IETF is doing?" And I didn't think we were, and
No.
I'm glad that because I always view them as complementary, right? They're solving a different part, and we are solving a different part, right? And you put the two together, and you have a good solution. I think both of these solutions should be independent from one another. But if a vendor, for example, wanted to on the back end of maybe a T solution that they have, if they want to back it with Skit, for example, that would be great. That would be an implementation detail now. But I'm glad we got confirmation that yes, these specifications are in fact complementary.
Yeah, and there are some shared problems we can attack together. And I think that's good as well. Yeah, I'm very happy about that meeting.
Sorry, how do you want to actually distribute that message that because it's a very positive message. Well, first of all, the message is we've got complementary, not contradictory stuff going on here. Secondly, there's a potential for like sort of synergy where, as you said, sort of integrators can produce something which is greater than the sum of the parts. But how are we going to actually put that out? A LinkedIn post? How about something on the TC54 website?
I need to have another meeting with them and discuss that kind of formalia. I was wondering though, when I went through KoalaCon here, if we should invite them to KoalaCon for just a brief presentation of their work.
Ali, is their glossary sufficiently mature enough that we should adopt it, or should we try to create our own? Or you said harmonization of terminology is important, and how do we go about that?
I just discovered that now it can be never-ending meetings if you start doing that, but I discovered that they have a list in the draft that is very similar to the list of types of artifacts we have in the T collection pull request. And they also discussed the naming, and we joined in hating the CPEs. And I explained to them what we're doing with Perl package URLs. But I think we can come to a point, but we probably need one or two more meetings where we
By
can.
the way, what's with the URN with my name in it?
That's funny.
Took a while till you discovered that, Chris.
I'm sitting, I was like, wait a minute, that's my name.
Is that an Easter egg?
I think it was added during a meeting or something.
Okay.
When we discussed.
That's okay. That's okay. Just what the hell?
And
I'm actually putting in this is kind of complementary to this work, but there was some questions for, a dislike for CPE, which I think is universal at this point. I presented this at the SBOM forum last Friday. It's basically a SWID generator for package URL. So if you want to generate, if you're a commercial vendor and you want to generate package URL formatted SWID tags, you can do that, right? It's pretty elementary. This actually
I'm
would probably
sorry I
solve.
couldn't join, Steve,
Yeah.
but I had more wine than usual for Friday evenings. It was no good.
Yeah. This actually solves not just commercial, but if you're an open source foundation or whatever, and you want to just, have
the online generator is beautiful.
Yeah.
It really helped me understand SWID, because the alternative was to pay $250 for the standard and still not understand it.
Right.
So I think that generator is beautiful, and we need to promote it.
And
Yeah.
what exactly is the difference between SCID statements and VEX records, for example? Aren't they similar?
SCID statements can be a VEX record, but it's just attested in the ledger. So you get a receipt that you actually published this from the ledger, and it's still in the ledger. So you
Okay.
can verify that this is one of yours, and it was officially stamped by the ledger. So I think any of those documents in there can become a SCID statement.
Their definition of attestation is very different than ours, I believe.
Yeah, they talked about having that problem, that what they call statement is no one else call it statement.
Right.
But
Okay,
we'll
so
figure
it's
that
just a timestamp that says that this document was published at
you get a
this
SCID
time.
receipt from the ledger after publication, and that receipt you add to your signed statement, and the statement and the receipt is proof that this is coming from you and it was published at a specific time and exactly this version. So it's very much like if you think certificate transparency, where a CA can't deny that they issued a certificate to chrisgates.com because a third party has actually control over the ledger. Okay, I wanted to move on. We have a
Sorry,
meeting.
Before we move on,
could I just jump in here? And this is not just so you know, Simon. That link that I posted there, it's open source, right? We one of the things that I'm working on with our stays here on the recording. But one of the things that we're working on is exactly that, right? I think the mechanics of continual artifacting of provenance throughout your SDLC, the mechanism of creating the artifact, or the mechanism of taking the snapshots and combining them, or whatever that may be, I think that's separate from what we're building here. I think they both enrich each other, right? It's like what we're doing helps us get deep, and then we're kind of creating some open source tools that get us wide and granular. But yeah, that's one of the big reasons that I'm here. So I just wanted to jump in and share those are some open source things that we're working on, if that helps. But super passionate about it and didn't want to let it go without.
Absolutely, Mitch. But please review my pull request on digital signatures, because I mentioned Sigstore in there as one of those.
Amazing. I will. Thank you.
Hey, Mitch, just for clarification though, and you might fully be aware of this, but I did look at the article real quick, and I just want to point out that the salsa definition of provenance is very, very different than the rest of the world's definition of provenance. So
Right.
just kind of, okay, awesome. So when
And
we're talking about provenance here, we are talking about something very, very different.
Oh, and yeah, I completely understood. Yes,
Okay,
I
cool. All
appreciate
right.
that. Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yep, awesome.
So that actually comes, that was related exactly to what I was been talking, kind of mentioned, which was, you know, the sort of need for sort of a common language. And that you, Steve, you just mentioned that Skit understand attestations in a totally different way. Now, Skit isn't like set in stone yet; it's still work in progress. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible, perhaps, that they might actually sort of we might come to a mutual agreement such that we can actually have one common sort of meaning of the word of the term attestation. Ditto for you know, things like provenance. That was what I immediately thought about when Steve mentioned that attestations were understood to be different. I mean, I see so many people refer to provenance, and it's in the salsa terms, and it's not what is more commonly understood as provenance. I mean, even affects things like you go into Nexus Repository Manager from Sonatype, and you see references to provenance, and you think, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
it's almost such a good word that it's a bad word, you know?
So the Skit working group is fairly small, and they have a couple of documents they're working on in a very open fashion. So if a number of us join the mailing list, which is open, I think we can put some pressure and get this right. But they just need contributors that are active. There's a lot of stuff on the mailing list from Dick Brooks and someone else that is more or less noise, but there are some people who do the right thing in there. Okay.
Yeah. One thing. What's on the screen at the moment? Tea leaf. I see that the sort of leaf was referred to on one of your other slides.
Coming there.
Teabag has got slightly different connotations to anyone who plays like computer games.
Aha, didn't know.
It's rather rude.
Oh
It
dear.
has a sexual connotation. Just put it this way, it involves the scrotum, okay?
I wasn't aware of that. That was
Oh.
a good joke here. We haven't used the word teabag, though. But let's look into what we had. We had a model before that looked more or less like this. And during the meeting we found last week, we found that we needed to separate something that you can call the product for a component of the product. Let me try to explain, and Pavel, you need to help me here. But I used Philips Hue as an example here. If you buy a light bulb, that's a single item in the box, right? And there's a single TI. So after discovery, you find an object with a single item that points to the index, where you can select between various versions. And there's a common life cycle enumeration on those as well. And you have your tea collection. Didn't call it tea bag. I'm happy for that. Okay. But then you look at the starter pack, and as you see, starter pack has many products with digital components, right? Software. So in the first level, you could have, for instance, a controller and a lamp. In the picture, I have switches as well. And that means you come to two different indexes and two different collections. Okay. Could be a pack where they bundle products for different vendors. So then we need to be able to use a TI to find a website on another from another vendor to find the T index and the collection. So in our discussion, we had stuff you buy with an article number, which is a single item. But we also need to handle stuff you buy, like the package starter pack, with multiple items. And that was the problem with the old model. So what we proposed after going back and forth is that we have a T product index where we have leaf items. And then we have the leaf index, which is the old index with versions. And we still have the collection that points to the various artifacts. So this is where we ended up in our big object model discussion. Any feedback, issues, ideas?
I'm curious what the structure is for the version 1, the T collection. Do you mean list literally, or?
Yeah, I have a pull request on the repository.
Let me pull that out. Sorry, my bad. I haven't got there yet.
No worries. But that's basically a list of artifacts, publication date, and version. We need to be able not have a complete Merkle tree ledger, but the user needs to see when the vendor updated something in the collection, and that means a new collection with new artifacts, right? So you can discover that.
And if you want to continue the imagery of sort of a T, and you don't want to use T-bag, you could always use T-caddy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing, and it's used to actually collect together all your T.
Mm-hmm.
So under artifacts, can we have these? Okay, I'm trying to understand what the artifact is itself. Is this a file such as a JSON file? Is this a pointer to a file such as a URL or URN? What is that?
It can be sort of anything. I mean, that I think that's what we had already, like in API discussions. I was just kind of waiting on this meeting to update the API after. But essentially, artifact is any metadata documents to the actual product.
I bring this up because I chair, along with the FDA, for medical devices, how to do updating and patching in the field. And being able to understand where an update or patch is available and versions for it. You've done 99% of the work here. Literally, if the artifact is an update or a patch to be applied, you've kind of solved this problem here, which is a nasty problem in updating.
I try to be rather open about what an artifact is. I mean, we have the basic, we have the S-bombs and others, but I'm rather open to have other objects in there.
Makes it extremely useful. Extremely useful.
Sorry, Chris, can you define the problem a little? Like I'm a little, like, could you explain a little more what you want to get from this?
So I have a ventilator in a hospital, and I want to know if there's an update available for it or a patch available for it. And so I walk up to it and I scan the Universal Device Identifier, UDI, for it. And that changes, we modify that into a URN. We go out, we now supply what the version is. That's an out of band thing. We don't know what that is because there's no way to pull up versions right now. But somehow we have version number and we apply that to it. And I now have access to all of these artifacts. And not only S-bombs and VEXs and VDRs, but I have also things like, oh yes, there are patches available for it. There are updates available for it. Here's what each of those updates and patches would do. we could convey all this information to this individual who then says, oh yes, I can wait on these updates and patches, or no,
Okay.
this is a high risk and I need to apply them now. And the whole thing could be
Okay, I see. I feel like, I mean, again, that's up to discussion, but I feel like all the updates and patches should be essentially in the leaf index level. So they would be part of the versioning.
Yeah,
Because
but one part is the version. When you update, you upgrade the version. But to get the actual patch and see what happens, that takes you down in the collection somewhere. I mean, CycloneDX can capture those events and actually the commits. So there has to be a way. But that's very interesting.
No, then we would need like, I mean, in kind of in a system like separate from T that I'm building, like we have a kind of separate entity for that, which currently I'm calling deliverable. But the question is whether we want this extra object in T or not. I mean,
you define it here and you add a URL to where to get it, the deliverable.
Right, but there could be several deliverables per version, and that's a little bit of a rabbit. Like the question is, do we really want to extend the T spec to kind of list those properly?
I don't think we have to extend it. We have a list of objects here, and I think we had a discussion. I think Piotr, you were part of that, right? About the typing of an artifact, and just saying it's a CycloneDX file is probably not enough, because CycloneDX can be a lot of different things, right? So we have both the media type and we have taken the artifact category. We looked at the CycloneDX spec for that. You need either one, but at least one, maybe two of them.
So basically your workflow is open version, go into SBOM, find the component description from the SBOM and get artifact from there. That's what you're saying the user can.
No, I didn't say go to SBOM. I say go to collection. And in the collection, you have a list of stuff. But the question is, if we to stay on Chris' topic, if CycloneDX lists patches and changes in those external reference item type.
It would. I'm pretty sure it would. But what if I understand correctly, what he wants a place where he says, let's say, new firmware for ventilator and the URL to download it. I mean, that's my understanding. And
that's pretty close. That's pretty close, Pavel. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And for sure that could be found in SBOM or in XBOM. If the BOM is built correctly, that would be there, I guess. But it may be a lot of work. That's what.
So Pavel, there's a little bit of a difference there, however, which is, again, you've got a guy who's now standing in front of this ventilator. He wants to understand: do I take this ventilator out of operation and perform this update and subsequent testing I need to do before I put it back into operation? Do I need to do that now? Can I do it tomorrow? Can I do it in a 6-month preventive maintenance update cycle? When do I need to do this? So he needs to be aware that this is available. What is this change, this update or patch? Do I need to apply it now rather than later and make their own judgments? So that delivering these artifacts that give them that sort of knowledge, that sort of insight, and then saying, oh yes, and we're currently at version 3, and so you can upgrade to version 4, and here's what it gets you. That should be, it's not at the leaf, because you're coming up at version 3, and it's saying there is a version 4 available. That would give you that information about version 4 and let you make those decisions whether or not you want to apply it.
Or the leaf index would have all the versions though. So when you get to the leaf,
also a status marker. So if I'm as a vendor say that there's a critical bug in version 2 and no longer support it, is replaced by version 3, then basically you get that information that you should really upgrade.
But you have to let the end user, right? You have to let the end user make that decision. They get to decide.
Oh, yeah.
You get to present to them,
yeah, but
and then they decide their appetite for risk.
yeah, but I mean, I can go out and say version 2 has end of life in 6 months, so do whatever you want. But I can also say I found a critical bug, upgrade from version 2 to 2.2.
Right.
So then I think this could be in the CLE for the version object in the index. So in the CLE, you essentially, so you stand in front of ventilator version 2, you read it, and the CLE says, okay, like don't use end of life, something like that. And then you know in the same index that like you need to look at version 3 and perform an upgrade. I think that makes sense, like this sort of workflow. I mean, it's a little rough, but maybe may get trickier on the implementation level, but
we need to capture that use case and figure it out.
Yeah,
but
can you reach out to Benji on that, Ole?
Sorry?
Reach out to Benji on that specific use case. If we can write that up and kind of mock it up and have Chris review it.
Yep.
I can do better than that. I can bring it up to the working group. We have about 70 people in the working group. So it's an extremely popular topic right now.
Okay.
And so awesome. I can actually, we can do this nice and start. I love these slides, by the way, Ole. I love these slides. I will be asking for these. Okay. That would be something that I could throw up to the entire working group. And that might be interesting right there.
There's one major problem with this slide though. The T collection
from the color?
is not. No, unfortunately not. The T collection is not necessarily going to be specific to a version. If you look at VEX, for example, VEX is applicable to multiple versions. Depending on the VEX format, CSAF, for example, it's going to be applicable to all products.
I think we have that one artifact can actually be part of collections.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's solved already because each artifact is essentially its own like identifier, and you can put it in several collections. So that shouldn't be an issue, like API wise.
I think we
if I have
earlier.
Right. It from this diagram, it doesn't look like I can have a T collection on a product itself. So like if I discover a product and I want the VEX for that product, I have to actually go to the version, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
But how do you have like VEX for, I mean
VEX files
the VEX
can
still
be
specific for a version, right?
No.
Usually VEX is a messy topic. In many cases, VEX is tightly controlled to an SBOM for a specific version. But in other cases, like CSAF, and the VEX is kind of generic for multiple products and multiple versions. In that case, it will be part of multiple collections, but a single artifact.
A single artifact in different places, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in multiple collections.
No,
is that going to be handled by our API, or is that an implementation detail that everyone needs to figure out for themselves?
API supports that, but how you do it is an implementation detail. Okay. Like there is nothing in API that restricts this. But what you're saying, like the question is, do we need like a direct arrow from product index from the leaf to T collection? This I don't know. I mean, I don't mind. I'm kind of, because there are, in any case, there are some artifacts that can be on the product level. This I can tell you for sure.
Attestations are one.
Yeah, like documentation, I don't know, like
right.
Maybe so there can be stuff on the product level for sure. I wouldn't put VEXes there personally, but maybe some people would. I mean, I just had a meeting recently with somebody who was complaining that a lot of vendors actually do that, and that's a mess. But
Yeah, I was wondering, should we have a version in the product index? So with the example of the physical device, I have a router version 1.7. I cannot upgrade that. That's the physical version. But the firmware is upgradable. So I can then go to router version 1.7, and I have a leaf index that shows me all the patch versions. In some way, I can determine which patch level is my router, and then I can upgrade it. I can change product.
yes, so the expectation right now is what you see as a product index is already your 1.7. So we did not put anything that would have like all the that would list all the versions for the multi-item product. That could be done, but I think so far we discussed it a little bit out of scope. But I mean, I personally I don't see an issue putting that in from one perspective, but from the other, from the discovery, the idea is you already get into your specific multi-item product.
I think another thing that we might want to take a look at, changing topics a little bit, going back to like the sequence diagram.
Yeah,
I think we need to look at how CSAF has, you know, they actually have discovery. So most people think CSAF is a format. It's actually not, right? The format is actually just one part of the specification. The other part that a lot of organizations actually miss is the whole distribution requirements. It's, I think, half the document. And we should probably take a look at how CSAF accomplishes that. There's some really poor, in my opinion, decisions that were made in that, but there's actually some really decent stuff in there as well that we could theoretically reuse.
We can get
without
inspired by. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You know, learn from their mistakes. Take maybe some of the good nuggets that are part of that distribution requirement section of the specification. Because they also, part of CSAF is discovery, and they go about it very, very differently than we do. But there might be something that we could gain from taking a look at it, because they actually have kind of a multi-prong approach to discovery. It's not just one thing. It's actually a combination of a few different things, which is interesting.
Okay, making a note of that.
Is there a need, or could we put in the leaf index all? So we have all the versions iterated out, of course, but then we also have one that says I apply across all versions. Maybe this is, I'm trying to come up with something that could be, I don't know, a user manual or something, or physical care and treatment and cleaning, something that wouldn't change across versions, but that would apply as we have this. I mean, we're very focused on SBOMs and VEXs and all of these artifacts that we create here under OWASP. But I think this transparency interface has a tremendous capability to deliver just about anything. And it's like,
yeah, I'm part of discussions with the Eclipse Foundation on the requirements of the new EU legislation. And in there, we have to distribute manual certificate of compliance and other things. And this API fits straight into that.
Right. So under that leaf index, can we have all besides versions or product or whatever you want to call it? I don't know what the name is for it, but
I made a note of that. We're running out of time, and I'm sorry, I have another meeting coming right up. Beautiful discussion. I made a note that Chris will come back with a use case, We need to check CSAF for discovery, and so far we're 95% happy with the new object model. Thank you, Pavel, for working with that, and Anthony Harrison also took part. We have this suggestion that a leaf applies to multiple versions that we need to capture as well. Okay. Great meeting. We're making progress here. I'm very, very happy. Yay. So unless we call for another brainstorm workshop meeting or something else, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And in between, please take a look at the pull requests I have. And
you should be able to merge those in soon, Ole. I sent you an invite to be a maintainer of that repo.
Thank you. I was trying to call some of your friends and see what I can bribe you with.
It's lack of time, man. That's my life.
I guess so. I guess so. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for participation. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Bye.